All right, so I know that last week we didn't really get much into this story, but last week, if you remember, we talked about Joshua and the dreams that he was, or Joseph, I'm sorry, Joseph, not Joshua. Too many J's in the Bible. So we talked about, we're not going to say Jesus is too much, but we talked about Joseph and about how he had some dreams that ended up getting him thrown into slavery, and he got put into prison. He got put under Potiphar, and Potiphar's wife tried to do what with him? Oh yeah, she wanted to fool around with that guy. And so anyway, we talked about how Joseph's story was different than, why am I still holding this thing? We talked about how Joseph's story is different than Potiphar's wife, right? Because her story was a whole lot different than his story was. And we talked about how we don't want to let people, like Potiphar's wife was writing Joseph's story. She was telling his story. We talked about how we don't want people to reflect on your past and tell their story off of past mistakes about you. And some of you are like, well, my past mistakes is like last week. Well, you know what? You got to start somewhere, don't you? You have to start somewhere, not rewriting your story, but moving forward from what has already happened. So, because you can't really rewrite your life story, can you? I hear it all the time. People are like, I'm going to rewrite my story. No, you're not. You're just starting a new chapter. That's how that is. Because with every book, there's like some chapters that I like to read books that are about Christ or religious-based stuff. If you give me a novel about some kind of mystery, or I'll even throw romance in there, or some comedy, I'll just put the dumb thing down within like one chapter because I have no interest in it. I have to read books that are about ministry or things like that because I just tell you, I'd rather cuddle with a cat than read. And I do not like cats. Okay, but so for me to read, it has to be about Christ or something to do with religion. And so I don't want you to let people write your story off their thoughts or beliefs. Joseph's story about what really happened is a whole lot better. You know, I talked to you about a young man who had made a decision that got him into a bad spot. He got accused of something he didn't do. It followed him through life and actually altered his life to where it was upside down. And finally, God got a hold of him somewhere in his 30s and changed things for him. And I told you, now he's playing guitar in a worship band at a church. And so can God still take the worst bucket of crap you ever fell in and you come out eventually? You don't come out of the crap smelling like roses. It takes a good bath, some deodorant, some cologne, or for the girls, perfume, or whatever. It's like I've told you guys this story before about me in middle school tripping over a guide wire and my head landed in dog crap, and they wouldn't let me go home from school, so I had to go around all day with my head smelling like dog poop. So if you've never heard that story, yes, I went through that, and I got called crap head, except not crap, if you can throw your own. You've heard plenty of curse words sharing the gospel with people this week, so you know some of them probably came out. And so that's what I got called all day at school because they don't make enough right guard to make dog poop go out of your hair. So just pro tip, don't fall in dog poop. It never goes away. But we're going to jump into the story with Joseph. We've talked about the past. We talked about how this is going to be based off the Christmas Carol movie, the past, the present, and the future. And so we are in the future right now. We're in the now. And so that's what I titled this message tonight, is just simply now. And so in Genesis 39, 19 through 23, it says, Potiphar was furious when he heard his wife's story about how Joseph had treated her, that brute. So he took Joseph and threw him into the prison where the king's prisoners were held, and he remained. But the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love, and the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that had happened in the prison. The warden had no worries because Joseph took care of everything. The Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. So was things starting to even get better for Joseph a little bit when he got thrown into prison? He was in a spot he didn't deserve. Has anybody ever been there? You've been in a spot you really didn't feel like you deserved to be there, but did eventually things start to get better for you? Because as we talked about, did God cause an accident to take someone's life? No. And that's where we get the chance to tell people the stories like that when they bring that up. Well, why did God cause that? Well, God didn't cause it. Sometimes it's just life. Because is anybody going to get out of this world alive? No. Did God cause my mom to get cancer? Certainly did not. Was not his hope and desire and dreams for it. But things happen to us along the way. And so you get put in spots you don't want to be in. Parents get divorced. You may grow up later and lose a job. You may drop out of college. You may lose some friends. A boy, a girl is going to break up with you. A best friend, you're going to have an argument or whatever, and it's going to be something that's affecting you, and it's happening now. And so is it a big deal in the middle of it when it's happening? Yes, it is. I got really blessed, whenever my mother passed away, I got really blessed. I could have done one of two things. I could have sat and sulked and mourned and cried. Did I have every reason to? Yes, I did. I had every right to. So if you've lost a loved one and you have had a day or a week or a month or a year where you sat and cried and mourned about it, then it's okay. But am I supposed to stay stuck in the bad situation? No, because the now needs me to be the light for him. And so for me to preach my mom's funeral and get on a bus and take kids to camp the same day was not really what I wanted to do. But did God ask me if that's what I wanted to do? He did not. And so I got to see, I could have stayed stuck in that position, but I was living in the now. I had a choice to either live for Christ in the bad experience, or I could just, is anybody really good at pouting? Anybody like a really good professional pouter? Like you can pout with the best of them. Lauren is wanting to raise her hand, but she is not. Okay, she's slightly rubbing her ear. One of you is loud and proud. I can. You can ask my wife. I can pout with the best of them. I really can. Me with a cold is like a woman giving birth. Okay, it's that extreme. Okay, so anyway, living in the now is not always where you want to be because the now is not always fun, is it? Joseph is in prison, not where he wants to be, is it? Why is he in prison? Yeah, but we can go further back than that. He's in prison because he got a dream from God about what was going to happen to him eventually in the future, but he conveyed it wrong to his brothers and his family. And really, has anybody had a conversation that didn't go right? Like you didn't mean for it to come out that way, but it kind of came out like you were cocky and on top of yourself. I mean, like you were all that in a bag of chips, okay? And so that's what Joseph's conversation comes out like. And so what got him in trouble to begin with? A dream. A dream got him in trouble to begin with. He ate some bad Chinese food. God took advantage of it and gave him a really great dream. That's not in the Bible. I'm throwing that out because some of you would be like, is that in the Bible? But he has a dream, and so his brothers get ticked at him, beat him up, throw him in a pit, sell him off as a slave. He finds himself in Potiphar's house working. Potiphar's wife wants to do worldly things with him, and he doesn't want to, so he runs out of the room, and now he's in prison. So he's living in the now of a lot of past decisions. And so he's in the now, and it moves on into Genesis 40. It says, sometime later, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker offended their royal master. Pharaoh became angry with these two officials, and he put them in the prison where Joseph was, in the palace of the captain of the guards. Do you think God is strategically placing some people in Joseph's path? Yes, he is. They remained in prison for quite some time, and the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, who took after them. While they were in prison, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker each had a dream one night, and each dream had its own meaning. When Joseph saw them the next morning, he noticed they both looked upset. You ever seen people in a mood and you should have just kept walking? Yes. Okay, so he says, why do you look so worried today? He asked them, and they replied, we both had dreams last night, but no one can tell us what they mean. Interpreting dreams is God's business. Joseph has learned some things on how to reply to people about the dreams he's had. He's like, only God can interpret these. He said, interpreting dreams is God's business, Joseph replied. Go ahead and tell me your dreams. So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream first. In my dream, he said, I saw a grapevine in front of me. The vine had 3 branches and began to bud and blossom, and soon it produced clusters of ripe grapes. I'm holding Pharaoh's wine cup in my hand, so I took the clusters of grapes and I squeezed the juice in the cup. Then I placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. This is what the dream means, Joseph says. The 3 branches represent 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up and restore you to your position as his chief cupbearer. And please remember me and do me a favor when things go well for you. Mention me to Pharaoh so he might let me out of this place. So Joseph is trying to kind of work some business here. I'll tell you what your dream is, but hey, it's going to be good. Pharaoh's going to like it. So will you please tell him that I had a part in it? Has anybody ever done that before? Hey, I'll help you with this, but I need some favors too. I want some out of my spot. So it says in verse 15, for I was kidnapped from my homeland, the land of the Hebrews, and now I'm here in prison, but I did nothing to deserve it. When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given the first dream such a positive interpretation, he said to Joseph, I had a dream too. Look at me. In my dream, there were 3 baskets of white pastries stacked on my head. That sounds terrible. The top basket contained all kinds of pastries for Pharaoh, but the birds came and ate them from the basket on my head. Well, that's why you shouldn't wear them on your head. This is what the dream means, Joseph told him. The 3 baskets also represent. Do you think the guy was excited? You think after he heard that, he was super excited, wanted to hear the same thing? Yeah, he shouldn't have. 3 days from now, Pharaoh will lift you up and impale your body on a pole. Well, that took a turn, didn't it? And so the birds will come and peck away your flesh. Man, Pharaoh's birthday came 3 days later, and he prepared a banquet for all the officials and the staff. He summoned his chief cupbearer, his chief baker, to join the other officials. He then restored the chief cupbearer to his former position so he could again hand Pharaoh his cup. But Pharaoh impaled the chief baker just as Joseph had predicted when he interpreted his dream. Pharaoh's chief cupbearer, however, this is the part this is the whole catalyst. Pharaoh's chief cupbearer, however, forgot all about Joseph, never giving him another thought. And so you see Joseph goes from one dream when he's a boy. What's it do? It gets him in trouble. Then he shows up and he's got some guys when he's in prison like, tell me your dream. Or this is my dream. Tell me this, tell me that. So he goes into this dream interpretation. One good, one's bad. But the guy that he helped out the most, guess what did he do? He forgot him. He let him down. And so can you kind of feel Joseph's frustration a little bit? Like, why am I here? I haven't done anything wrong. I'm in this spot. I got in trouble for this dream when I was a kid. I got in trouble for these dreams now. I'm not where I want to be because of what happened with Potiphar's wife. Now I'm stuck in this spot right here. I've helped these people out. Nobody wants to help me out. And so he jumps from dream to dream to dream. And eventually it's going to get better for him. We're going to jump into that here in a minute. But here's the deal. You're going to pray for certain things in your mess. And I really feel, do you feel like Joseph had a prayer life? Yeah, because he knew who God was. And so because he even said, only God can interpret these dreams. So he'd learned, I need to go to God about what you're talking about. And so he goes from these spots, because you're going to have that. Because you want to move from one spot to another. You're teenagers, right? So some of you are in middle school. How many of you want to move to high school? How many of you don't want to move to high school? You want to stay in middle school? The majority of you are like, I'm scared to death to go to high school. But how many of you in high school are ready to get out the door? Like you're ready to go. If you're a middle schooler and you were in high school, how many of you would be ready to graduate and get out the door? Okay, all of you are ready. How many of you are just excited to get out of school to begin with? Okay, well here's the deal. Guess what's after high school? College or a job. So you're leaving one nightmare headache that you feel like is so bad, and what are you transitioning into? Another nightmare and headache that's so bad. It's like if you buy a new car, what do you get? The payments and insurance and property taxes and oil changes and tires and gas and all kind antifreeze, all kinds of stuff that you have to. If you get a horse, getting a horse sounds like a really cool thing, doesn't it? They're freaking expensive. Shoes, shots, wormer, all this stuff that you have to do. Then you got to buy the saddle so you can ride the dumb thing. Okay, I've owned them for years. I know they're expensive. And so you want to get out of one spot. You're asking God to take me out of one spot. And I know that's what Joseph was probably doing. When he was in that pit, his brothers had thrown him in. Was he going, God, get me out of this pit? Yeah, what did he do? He got him out of the pit. But where did he put him? Put him into slavery. Got him into slavery. Where did he put him? Potiphar's house. Seemed like maybe a little better, but where did he get him? With a floozy. Put him in prison. Now he's in prison. And he's getting dreams. Guys forget him. He's stuck where he is. Do you see a pattern? But who's still with him? God is. Because you make past mistakes, can you have a new now? You can. You choose what you do with it. Joseph had the chance to go, you know what? Here's the next part of the story. In 41, 8 through 16, it says the next morning Pharaoh was very disturbed by the dreams. Oh my gosh, more dreams. So he called for all the magicians and the wise men of Egypt. When Pharaoh told them his dreams, none of them could tell him what they meant. Finally, the king's chief cupbearer spoke up. Today I have been reminded of my failure that he told Pharaoh. I slipped my, is anybody forgetful? Like slip your mind to help somebody out today? Yes. Some time ago, you were angry with the chief cupbearer and me, and you imprisoned us in the palace of the captain of the guard. One night, the chief baker and I each had a dream, and each dream had its own meaning. There was a young Hebrew man with us in prison who was a slave of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he told us what each of our dreams meant, and everything happened just as he had predicted. I was restored to my position as a cupbearer, and the chief baker was executed and impaled on a pole. Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once, and he was quickly brought from the prison. After he shaved and changed his clothes, he went in and stood before Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream last night, and no one here can tell me what it means. But I have heard that when you hear about dreams, you could interpret it. It is beyond my power to do this, Joseph replied, but God can tell you what it means and set you at ease. And if I'd have been Joseph, I'd have been like, the heck with you. I ain't talking about no more dreams. Dreams have done nothing but got me in trouble. Dreams have done nothing but let me down. And you're going to have, does anybody have dreams of what you want to do when you graduate from high school? Does anybody have dreams what you feel like your family's going to look like, what you feel like your kids are going to grow up to be like, what kind of job you're going to have, what kind of car you're going to be able to finally drive when you get older? I'm reminded of a commercial where there's a guy, he's standing there in his house, and they're in their 40s, and they're like, oh man, wouldn't you love to go back and party like we did in high school or college? And he's like, no, I can pay my bills now. I don't want to go back to then. I can pay my bills now. I don't want to do that. And so Joseph, I'd have been like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hear about your dreams no more. But do you see how you can get stuck in the bad experiences, in the bad situations, and you choose what you do with now? You choose right now where you're sitting at right now, no matter what has happened at home, no matter who has died in your life, no matter who's broke up with you, who's unfriended you, who's blocked you on social media, no matter all these things that because I found out the other night, if you get blocked on TikTok, it's serious, okay? I didn't know there was different levels, but there's different levels of being blocked. But whatever it is you're living in right now, that you've moved from one bad situation to the other, and you feel like life just is not fair and it sucks, what did it say in here when Joseph was in prison? It said God was still with him, and he's still working, and he's still moving, regardless of family members who pass away. And I'm speaking from experience. God still wants to move through that. He still wants to move past that hurt. No matter who has destroyed you in some way in your life, he still wants to use that. I had the choice that week at camp to sit around and just sulk and do nothing, but I shared the story constantly with people. How my mom made me go to camp, even beyond past the grave. She made me go to camp. She told me before she died, she goes, I don't care if I pass away while you're gone. No teenager is not going to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ because I have leukemia. So you get your butt on that bus and you go to Denver and you go to camp because the picture is bigger than me, because she got it. She knew. She knows. When you talk to an atheist, do you hurt for them? Because they don't really know what's past this life. Your mom was a great Christian woman. She knew. She knew. Mine knew what's past this life. My prayer is that for your parents to finally know and to grasp a hold of it and say, that's what's past this life. But we're in the now right now. And so I have to go, yeah, that hurt. That sucked. But let me tell you how my mom's focus was for lost teenagers. Let me tell you how she's the one that walked my dad to salvation, was orchestrating with that. I've got some things right now in my life that I would definitely change. And I'm going to move from one bill to the next one. I paid $3,000 in hospital bills this last week. Did I want to pay that? No, I did not. But are more bills going to come? They are, because we're stuck in a world that we're not meant to be in. But God will bless you in the now if you'll just hold on, because in 41:37-40, it says, Joseph's suggestions were all received by Pharaoh and his officials. Was Pharaoh a believer in God? No, he was not. So Pharaoh asked his officials, can we find anyone else like this man, so obviously filled with the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has revealed him the meaning of dreams to you clearly, no one else is as intelligent or as wise as you are. You will be in charge of my court and all my people, and you will take order, or they will take orders from you. Only I, sitting on my throne, will have a rank higher than yours. Did Joseph start to finally see daylight out of all of his troubles? Why? Because he kept going in the now. He got thrown in a pit. He was living in the now of that situation. He got sold into slavery. He had to live in the now of that event. He got put in Potiphar's house and wrongly accused of something he didn't do, and he had to live in that now. He gets put into prison. He's with a bunch of guys who can't shower and stink and apparently shave and anything like that, in the most disgusting environment you would be in. Did he still help his friends out that were in there with their dreams? Yes, he did. He chose to still show love even when life wasn't fair to people that probably were in prison for a good reason. And he still decided in the now to love on these people that are around him that he probably didn't agree with. These are people of different faith. These are people of different beliefs. Can you imagine what the language was like in prison where he was? The environment, it has to be terrible. But he's living in the now, but the important thing is, who is he living for in the now? He's living for God. Jesus hadn't arrived on the scene yet. We'd love to say Jesus, wouldn't we? Yeah. But he's living for the one true God that he believes in. And because he stayed faithful, even in the mess, when he stayed faithful, when life didn't feel fair, because some of the things that you may want to do when you graduate high school may not take off. They may not happen. Again, God made me wait till I was 29 years old to get married. And I thank a God who blocked me from so many bad decisions. He allowed me to walk a few months and a few years with a few of them. But he protected me in the end, because I wasn't always the best Christian. As I told you, you're talking about Christians that cuss and things like that. I was right there with the best of them probably 20 years ago. You'd have found me doing the same thing. I told you, I got saved at 12, but I didn't start following Christ till I was 36. I know it wasn't very Jesus-like. We're supposed to call the young children to us. So I want you to kind of take a chance tonight and look at your situation that you're in. You may sit here tonight and go, my life's fine. I'm knocking it out in sports. I've got good grades. My mom and dad are not fighting that you see. I still got food on the table. The electric's getting paid. I still got my girlfriend, my boyfriend. I'm single and love it, whatever. The Wi-Fi still works so I can play video games. You know, whatever it is. You may be like, my life's great. My life's perfect. Well, hold on. Has anybody ever felt like that? Your life's good? It's kind of like when David defeated Goliath. He won that battle. And we like to stop when David defeats Goliath. But you know what David had to do right after he defeated Goliath? There's another battle. And Saul put him in another battle, and another battle, and another battle. The battles didn't stop just because he beat up a giant, because he killed one. They kept coming. But who was with David the whole time? God was. Your friends, your family need you to be Christ faithful in the now. Some of you apparently have one person you're zeroed in on. You are sharing Jesus with this one like crazy. Some of you have some right now, like I'm living in it now with these people, and they keep arguing with me, and they've made me so mad and so angry. And God's like, sometimes you just need to hang out with them in the prison they're in. Those people that were in prison, did they need Joseph? They did. They needed that example. They needed that faithful person who was willing to walk with Christ even when it looked so terrible. So are you willing to be the teenager today that despite of what is going on, what's hurt you, what's trying to drag you down every day, that you're like, I'm over here. It sucks, but Jesus is better. I'm going to get seen one day. He's going to do more for me than I've ever imagined if I'll just stay faithful in the now. Because Joseph's road was a long ways from a teenager to a grown man. You don't just get to be grown man overnight, do you? You don't get to be grown woman overnight, do you? So was it a long? There was a lot of nights. I'm sure Joseph felt like giving up. But he had to make a conscious decision to go, no. I grew up in a house. Some of you are like, my house don't worship God. You're in a house tonight that does. Do you love this place? Do you love the environment? Because I've watched countless teenagers come in the door that I know the house that they live in did not worship God, but this one does. So I hope you love and embrace the Christians that are sitting around you. You may not agree with them, you may argue with them, you may fight with them, but in the end, what's more important? All of your beliefs in Jesus Christ. You tracking with me? Is Joseph's story impacting you so far? If it is, come back next Wednesday night because we're going to talk about the future. So I want to give you the chance tonight just to talk to God about the now. And so if you need to go talk to him about the now, if you want to grab somebody that's next to you and say, I need to pray with you about the now, I'm going to urge you to do this. Don't leave anybody sitting alone. Joseph was sitting in a prison with 3 guys or 2 guys that are sure glad he was there. If you see somebody sitting by themselves, I'm going to urge you to go find them. I've got one sitting here by himself. He's like, I don't want anybody, but you're going to get somebody. We're not meant to do this alone. That's the whole deal. We're not meant to do this alone. So I'm just going to give you the chance tonight just to pray, God, this is where I am. This is the now I'm in. Help me keep my eyes focused on you. Help me see you even when I don't feel you. Help me feel you when I'm numb. Because some of you in this room tonight know what it's like to hurt a lot. And if you haven't yet, I hope you can hold on to Joseph's story. Because we ain't done yet. Father, I want to praise you tonight. Because I didn't think about this till now, just telling this story to these teenagers. That those 2 guys in prison, even though one of them got stuck on a pole, we'll just throw that over on the side, needed community. That cupbearer needed Joseph. Pharaoh needed Joseph. I hope Potiphar learned a lesson, and I hope his wife changed by seeing how Joseph lived his life. God, there's a lot of teenagers tonight living in the now that doesn't seem fair. There's some of their past, as we talked about last week, that doesn't seem fair. God, a lot of the stuff that has happened to me that didn't seem fair, I caused it. Sometimes I think the devil's standing there, Lord, going, I didn't do that. He did it. Father, help us tonight when we talk to people. I know we've talked about one that we're sharing the gospel with that is hurt over a past death of a loved one. Father, you didn't cause that. But we get a chance to show your love through that. And help us to do that. Help us to grab onto the hurting and say, I love you. I do. I think that's part of why I didn't want anybody praying alone tonight. Because we all need to know everyone in here is loved. We may not know their names. We may not go to the same school. We may not be in the same grade, the same building. But Father, I pray that we would do whatever it takes for anyone in this room at any moment to advance your name. So, Father, if there's anyone here tonight, God, that has never put their faith and trust in you, that even though there's others gathered around them tonight praying, they still feel alone, that they put their faith and trust in you tonight, that they are making the decision to be saved. So, God, I give you the glory. I thank you so much for Joseph's story. Father, I pray someday somebody's impacted by mine. I pray that these teenagers in here impact somebody by theirs. God, you're so good. You're so good even in the now when it doesn't feel good. You're still so good. Thank you for letting me see you in all my life situations, and help me to continue to look for you. And we ask it in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen. You guys are dismissed however you want to. I went too long.
Rigidly.